the unique thing that I really love about the design of this is that if you want to look up a topic, and, astrologers are always looking for the topic, whole sign, that's a big deal now, whole sign charts, or solar arcs, or high legs, or secondary progressions. You just pop those keywords in the subject line. And anything that we've loaded, whether it's a book that you can locate in a hard copy library, whether it's a copyright-free piece that we have on the site that you can read, whether it's a magazine that's uploaded that we have copyright-free assistance, you can find it there. Or there's about 1,000 to 1,500 right now that are listed that go directly, they take you a link that will take you to Internet Archives, which is in San Francisco, and they're very well funded, where you can borrow the book online for an hour for free. And several very well-known books are there. So, this is important because for those of you who are watching this, you know that when you want to find one of the older books, you go on to Amazon or someone else. And some of these old books are like $140.
Yeah. This podcast episode is sponsored by Astrology Hub's Academy. Wherever you are on your astrology journey, we have a class that will help you get to the next level. Well, hello and welcome to the Astrology Hub podcast. We're so happy that you've decided to join us here today. I'm here with an Astrology Hub favorite teacher of ours, Georgia Stathis. She is a financial astrologer, but also practices all the different types of astrology. And so we're going to be talking today about the real story behind the Library of Alexandria. So this place that I know for me, it's always been associated with a great fire that burned down all of these texts and all this ancient wisdom. But Georgia's actually going to shed some light on what actually did happen and why it relates to a project that is very near and dear to Georgia's heart, and also something that we have decided to partner on with our upcoming Health, Wealth, and Fulfillment series. So you're going to understand everything that I'm talking about here in just a second. But Georgia, welcome to the Astrology Hub podcast. It's great to have you here today.
Nice to be here, Amanda. It's nice to be here with everybody today. Thank you.
Yeah, great. All right. So let's start with the history. The Library of Alexandria. What was it and why was it so important?
Well, it was extremely important. It was started by Ptolemy Soter, who was one of the Egyptian pharaohs, and it was started around 285 BCE, which is interesting. They say that he died in 283 BCE, so about 2 or 3 years before his death. Probably this is his way of doing a foundation, I guess. And what happened is it became known as the central place in the world where scholars went, where research was done, where lots of information was passed through, lots of crossroads. And as a result of that, it became known as the Great Library. And what was interesting about that, it was under the auspices, under the umbrella of a larger research institute called Museion, which actually in Greek means museum. Museion, which was named after the 9 muses of the arts. And so it was flourishing and people came all over. They had probably the largest papyrus collection, which is our version of books, between, they say, between about 1,000 to 400,000 papyruses.
Wow.
And so it became an incredible resource for people to come and study metaphysics, the ancient arts, all the things that we actually do as astrologers today, and many other things like science discoveries, whatever they were doing. And then what happened over time, which is what happens a lot, is funding became less available. Politics started to step into it. And the library kept going, but somewhere around 145 BCE, and for those of you who don't understand this, we're doing the numbers backwards, because before BCE is you do numbers backwards, and after is when the numbers go forward. So around 145, 146 BCE, what started to happen is the intellectuals who had gathered there, it was an enormous intellectual center of scholars. Perhaps, we really don't know what, but they became very powerful, and that was a threat. And so they started purging the scholars and the intellectuals. And those scholars and intellectuals began to go all over the world as a result of it and seeded the information that comes through in our Hellenistic and all the old ancient traditional things now. So in a way, even though the library failed, there was a seeding of the universe. And there's a lot of stories about how it burned. Well, a portion of it did burn. It was much further up, about another 100 years later, around 48 BCE. Julius Caesar, when it was in the midst of his civil war. And so a portion of the library did burn down, and a lot of very important things were lost. And the reason we named our project the Alexandria-based project is because I've been doing this a very long time. And in the time when I started, we had books. We had very few books, by the way. And then we had lots more books. And over time, what would happen is astrologers die, or the family members of astrologers die. And, I was in it along about 20 years. And all of a sudden I was getting calls from so many different people around the world. My mother left her books. Where do they go? What about this? And so what I did, I tried to take these collections to the real libraries. I mean, the brick and mortar libraries in our neighborhoods, but they would not take them. They don't have funding. And probably if there'd been other books, they might have taken them. I don't know. The only way they would take these books, and they still take any of the collections that we get, if we were to get them, is to sell them in Friends of the Library sales for $10 here, $1 there, splitting up collections. And for those of you who know about astrology books, one of the things about our industry is when a book is published, unless it's sold thousands and thousands and thousands and thousands of copies, it'll get a one-shot deal. And so there's books going back to 1870s, books going back to the 1700s. We don't have all of these. We are not a brick and mortar library. We are actually a find it library, if you will, a catalog library. We've got 4 librarians on staff, 2 project managers. And we have designed this project, which is dear to my heart because I love to read, and I don't want to see this knowledge going away. And where are we going to find it? So I decided, actually, I was in a meeting at NCGR Regional about 2009, I think, was on the East Coast. And I was very upset because I was also sending books to Australia. You used to be able to send books very cheaply through these big bags. You can't do that anymore. And so I brought it up in a meeting and people said, oh, that's a really good idea. We should do something about this. And then Christine Skinner of the United Kingdom, who's a very good friend of mine, a wonderful financial astrologer, and who was on the Urania Trust board, said, let's go have tea. So we started talking. And long story short, several people were on board with the board. We had meetings every month for 6 years. I funded most of it. I still fund most of it. And Urania Trust has helped us. And we've had some donors that have been generous, 500 and 1,000 occasionally. And we built this wonderful URL, really, alexandriabase.org, which not only will show, if we've got it uploaded, it'll show you where you can find it in a hard copy collection, whether it's Robert Graves or Cali up in Washington or University of Illinois in Illinois. I mean, we only have so many people working only so many hours a week or month. And so we only have about 16,000 to 20,000 things uploaded at this point. But around 2015, we decided to become a foundation, and we became a 501c3 nonprofit foundation, educational foundation. And we also opened a Schwab account too, so that, if people wanted to donate, because in other countries, you don't get the deductions for donations in some countries, but in the US, you can do that. And this meant that if people wanted to help us, they would also get some sort of tax advantage as well. So that helped us open up a few things as well. The unique thing that I really love about the design of this is that, which is very different than other databases. If you want to look up a topic, and, astrologers are always looking for the topic, whole sign, that's a big deal now. Whole sign charts, or solar arcs, or high legs, or secondary progressions. You just pop those keywords in the subject line. And anything that we've loaded, whether it's a book that you can locate in a hard copy library, whether it's a copyright-free piece that we have on the site that you can read, whether it's a magazine that's uploaded that we have copyright-free assistance. You can find it there. Or there's about 1,000 to 1,500 right now that are listed that go directly, they take you a link that will take you to Internet Archives, which is in San Francisco, and they're very well funded, where you can borrow the book online for an hour for free. And several very well-known books are there. So, this is important because for those of you who are watching this, you know that when you want to find one of the older books, you go on to Amazon or someone else. And some of these old books are like $140.
Yeah.
You can't get them the way you used to get them. Why not find it if you can online or find it in a library that we've uploaded? But it's a very tedious, it's a very long, involved process. And everyone loves this, Amanda. Everybody I talk to. But we need the funding because we have to pay it. A lot of people aren't doing this for free. I don't believe that if you're going to do a quality product that you shouldn't pay people. And we pay our people. We don't pay them much. For a long time, we didn't pay them anything, but they still work. And we have a budget that we do every month and every year. And I don't know how much longer we can go because we're doing a lot. But I think it's extremely important. I think this is an extremely important project because it's a preservation project. And not only is this a preservation project, it is a global preservation project. And it's not just for astrologers and astrology students and researchers. It's for people who want to know not just the sun sign columns in the newspapers, but they really want to know a little bit more about astrology. We have also on there uploaded not only the hard copy libraries that we know have collections, but we also have several online URLs where people can go and find articles or documents as well. And finally, and I know I'm doing a lot of talking, so forgive me, this is the most important piece, I think. That's an important piece under Search the Catalog. But we also have a thing called special collections. And special collections is a separate piece that's built into the site itself. Right now, one of our project managers has been scanning. For those of you who've been around for a while that are watching this podcast, you know the old Mercury Hour. It was the Chatty Cathy magazine that astrologers exchanged. It was on mimeograph paper and it was done way back when. And we got some copies of that and we've scanned them. And our project manager has a cover sheet for each edition to show what's in there. And what's really fun about this is you'll see people that are now very well known, like Stephen Arroyo, who wrote some beautiful books, Astrology, Karma, and Transformation, for example, who is at the beginning and just chatting about ideas before he became who he became. And we will be having very soon, Michael Erlewine, who had the original Matrix library and founded the original Matrix software, has been in contact with us. He is sending over 2,000, according to Michael, 2,228 digitized interviews, etc., for us to upload in special collections. And that's coming sometime in the next 6 to 8 months. I think that's about the time frame we're looking at. And we'll have to go through it. Of course, you need funding to go through it, to sort it, but he's done a pretty good job from what I hear. So that's what we are. We are a locator, a find it, a place. We are not exclusive of the hard copy libraries. I mean, we would love to work in tandem with that. We've got several of Philip Graves in the UK. He has an incredible collection. He's the son of Robert Graves, actually. And he has an incredible collection in the UK, and we're uploading his catalog right now. So if somebody's in the UK, they can go and see the books. So, this is why we call it the Alexandria. We're not going to be able to save everything. We know that. But I think that we'll be able to save a few. Hello, everyone. My name is Georgia Stathis, and I'm part of Astrology Hub's upcoming Health, Wealth, and Fulfillment Workshop series. And my portion will be on decoding your chart, overcoming your blocks to abundance. What I'm going to try to teach you, and I think I will teach you, is how your Saturn placement can point to fears that may be holding you back, which keeps you from prospering financially. The second thing we'll be covering is how your Jupiter placement, often said to be where you're abundant, can also be where you overdo a little bit or overspend. We'll also be talking about the second and eighth houses. And I will also be covering how the early family story can make a person have a view of what becoming wealthy or maintaining wealth is about. There's a lot of intricate little pieces that I'm going to share with you, as well as some really fun tools on judgments, on possibility thinking, on making reasonable requests. But you have to attend the workshop to get those tips. Find out more about the workshop at astrologyhub.com/Georgia workshop.
Okay, so the way that I understand this, Georgia, is that essentially there's all these books, there's collections of books, there's articles, there's now video interviews and all things that have happened throughout time by some of the greatest astrologers that have walked this earth. And that if there isn't a place for us to find them, these books of things, that they'll just sort of disappear and just be in all corners of the world, and we won't know where they are, and we won't know how to find them, and the wisdom contained in those pages will be lost.
Yeah.
And so what I'm also hearing you say, this has been a complete labor of love. Nobody's making any money on this.
No, nobody.
In fact, you probably lost money on this.
No.
This is part of the legacy that you're leaving. This is part of you and Christine and the people that have worked on this project. This is so important to you as I see you as the visionaries in the field that many of us are getting to follow in your footsteps, that many people are getting to stand on your shoulders because of the work that you've done, that all these, other
everybody can. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And so preserving, the field and what has come before us. The thing about astrology is it's not like, it's timely in the sense that it's like the study of time. But some of the practices that we're doing, these things have been around for a long, long time. And it would be tragic, really, to lose the insights. And Georgia, you've been practicing astrology for decades now. And can you explain to us what it was like to be an astrologer in your 20s versus what it's like to be an astrologer now?
It was terrible. It was terrible because, first of all, there weren't many books.
Right.
No, and we didn't have computers either.
Right.
When I started, I was studying it in my early 20s. I didn't start practicing until about 1977. And there were very few books. And some of the books that were written were, they were starter books, I hate to say cookbook, but they were cookbook. And then there was this real amazing renaissance. It's even before the traditionalists came in with Hellenistic, which all came while I was teaching at Kepler from 2001 to 2008. Before that, we were all pretty young, and we were also in discovery because, for example, I'm a financial astrologer. There'd been some work done on that in the 1930s, but nobody really started working on that stuff until the early 1980s, seriously. And then you didn't have computers either. And Michael Erlewine was one of the first people who designed software for computers. And then, of course, that merged into PC, Macs, all kinds of things. So that was hard. You couldn't get the books. There used to be a little, I remember over here in Walnut Creek, California, there was a little old lady who had this little tiny house. And she called it her Theosophical Library. And you could go over and borrow books from her, but you couldn't take them out of her house. You had to sit in the house and read the little books, right? Well, that went by the wayside. And then there was bookstores.
Right.
We had a lot of metaphysical bookstores all over the country, especially on the West Coast and the East Coast. And people could go into the bookstores and buy the books pretty reasonably. In those days, they were $5.95, $6.95. That was a lot for us, but you could get the books. And then those went by the wayside because now, we're doing digitized ordering online. That's gone. So where do you go? There are still some bookstores. It was just learning as you went, and you learned from the people that you went to classes with. You learned from the people who were writing articles. They had a lot of little magazines at that time, like the Mercury Hour, Aspects magazine, Welcome to Planet Earth from up north. Of course, Mountain Astrologer was one of the first, and they're still going strong. And that's how you learn too, because those articles were in there. But what happened to the articles? I mean, that's the thing. And, I just shared this the other evening. I was teaching one of my classes for China. I was teaching eclipses, and because at Kepler, when I was teaching the undergraduate program, we were very clear about having to name our sources. And so I was naming some, what I call oldies but goodies. Robert Jansky, who wrote the eclipse book, which you can't get anymore. Buzz Myers, who was from Ohio, who was a brilliant eclipse. He died way too young. He left a bunch of cassette tapes. Okay. Sylvia Jean Smith. And so when I did the lecture, I was done, and they were all very young. It was a young demographic taking the class, but David Rayleigh, who heads No Door School, he's a contemporary of mine. He said, "Oh my God, I remember these people when I was in Atlanta, Georgia, 40 years ago, coming to speak at our classes."
Yeah.
And nobody knows who these people are. If you mention Robert Jansky, I mean, some of the oldies but goodies know, but a lot of the younger generation. And I don't want to disparage a lot of the work that the younger people are doing. The younger people that are coming up are doing some amazing work. And this is for them.
Yeah.
Not only for them to have something, a history, really, it's a history, but it's also for their own work in some way to be held in hallowed halls of preservation. So down the road, because look what's happening with the book burning it's kind of like book burning right now. All these books are being taken off shelves across the country, where we can't read the things that we were able to read in certain cities. I mean, books that were our classics that we, not astrology books, but regular classic books. And I think that that's a travesty that we can't have access to these things. So this is maybe it's a little bit more of an activist stance too. I mean, if somebody doesn't do it, and I don't know if we'll be able to do it, we'll go as long as we can, and then we can't go anymore. Okay. But I know one thing, if we can't go anymore, I intend to leave it in my estate, that at least the website and what we've uploaded will be there for future. Because I mean, I don't want to get emotional about this, but I get very emotional about the work we do. I think that we're catalysts. And I think that people are lucky to have astrologers in society. And regardless of how taboo it may be to some people, it's not so taboo anymore. It's important. And it can change somebody's life. You've had readings. I've had readings that changed my life. I mean, oh my God, I never considered this idea until that astrologer suggested to me to at least open myself up to think about it. Okay. And that's what literature is about, any kind of literature. So, I know I'm being very emotional, and I apologize, but
Please don't apologize.
It's very emotional to me because it's hard to fund this every year, but I'll be damned. I'm going to do it. And until I can't. And I love what they're doing. I love our little tiny crew. They're like little mice, little elves. They work all the time. And no, they're giving us a lot more hours than they're getting paid for, because they're only allowed so many hours a month for the budget. So that's it.
Georgia, thank you for sharing your heart and just how important this is. It's hard to convey, I think, with all the information that's like at our fingertips now with the internet. It's like, we lose some books, but we're not talking about losing books. We're talking about lifetimes of work.
Yes,
that it's irreplaceable, really. And anybody, I'm sure, you were an astrologer in your younger years. What's the difference between you as an astrologer then versus you an astrologer now? Like, what does having a lifetime of experiences, of giving readings, of studying, of researching, how does that change you as an astrologer? And why is that valuable?
Well, I was always I'm kind of a loner, and I always like to read, and I'm naturally curious. And I would go to meetings and I would, hear people speaking about something I didn't understand, but I thought, oh, this could be useful if I'm working with somebody. And then I go find their book or go find their article. Sometimes it didn't ring with me, like Uranian astrology. I love it, but it's not my thing. I understand it. And that's what was very important, is that I learned about things that I really don't use, but that I know about if somebody's referring to it, And I know when we were teaching the undergraduate program as team teachers at Kepler for that 8 years, we had the undergraduate program and the master's program, that we had to teach with Vedic teachers, with classic teachers. I was a modern teacher, and I learned by being with my peers, not everything about Vedic. I did study it for 2 years. I studied horary for 2 years, which is the ask a question. I'm not real good at horary. Lee Lehman's a lot better at that than I am, but I know about it. And this is the thing that I like about learning about all these different things, is when you see something in a chart from your perspective, because you end up always using the techniques that work for you and your clients and the kinds of clients that you have. But then you'll see something because you read about something in that old book, which, by the way, for those who have huge astrology libraries in their own homes, this is also a very useful tool. Because if you want to find where that article was about that topic in your own library, and we have it uploaded, you could pop it in and it'll say, oh, it's in this book that's in your library, in your own house. Oh, wow. You're in an office, right?
Yes.
You go to get it and you go, oh my God, this is where it was. They use it all the time. I actually I have a student in Mexico. She's very funny, very bright. She wrote an endorsement for us. It's so cute, but it was a little off, but it was cute. She said that she did a workshop. She did research on serial killers using astrology charts.
Wow. Yeah.
And she said that she used our database to find books to help her with the workshop.
Wow.
In her life. Yeah. See, that's the other way you can look at it, for your own library that you own.
Right. So some of these, obscure topics, but then also real nuanced topics where you can get lots of different perspectives on a topic, and you can dive into some of the more historical aspects of that topic. And yeah, I mean, to me, we feel very aligned with your project, Georgia. That's why we're here doing this podcast.
Thank you.
When we're asking all of you, if this touches you and if you want to contribute to the Alexandria iBase project and help keep it alive, so it doesn't go by the wayside because of funding, like the Library of Alexandria, this is an opportunity to do that. And you can do it as part of our Health, Wealth, and Fulfillment workshop series, that we do have a pay it forward option. If you want to do a larger contribution, it'd probably be beneficial to do it directly through Georgia's platform. How would they do that, Georgia?
Oh, they can go to www.alexandriaibase.org/donate. There is a donate button on the homepage.
Okay.
And the other piece too, we do have a Schwab account. If some people have stocks and they don't want to sell them and have capital gains, they can always give. I actually give stocks each year to the Hellenic National Museum, which is another project that I'm involved in. My father started that. And our company donates so many stocks every year to keep their platform going.
Oh, nice.
So that's what we've set up with Schwab, is if somebody wants to donate stocks in their estate, there wouldn't be any capital gains for the estate. I know this sounds so business-like and we're talking astrology, but it's reality. It's reality,
Yeah. And it could make more sense, because then you can write it off on your taxes if you go.
Yes.
Our pay it forward, we've had lots of people already contribute that are taking the workshop series, and they're just adding another $10 on, or they're adding 20, they're just adding a little bit to their workshop series purchase, which is definitely an option. And we thank all of you who are doing that and all of you who will do that. And then if you were like, God, I'd like to throw in a couple hundred or 500 or 1,000 or something bigger, just to be able to write it off on your taxes, go direct to Georgia, because they're 501c3, and then you'll be able to write that off.
Right. And if I might add, for perspective, we pay our librarians and our project managers $25 per hour. So $25 will pay for 1 hour of library or project manager time. And the catalog process where they get the table of contents, we're trying to list all the tables of contents. That's a slow project. Oh yeah. So you can go in and see if that's something you want to do, uploading it to the internet. So that's the perspective. Whenever people give us a donation, we send a little note saying, thank you. You've just given us 5 hours of library time. Because I think it's important for people to know. And the other thing you can do with any foundation, any nonprofit foundation, is if you choose to donate, you can always say, I want to donate it for this thing in your foundation. You don't have to just blankly give things. You can actually name, which is for any donation. And I do believe that if we don't give back, we don't receive. And I always believed in tithing. This is a kind of tithing, if you will.
Yes, absolutely. Okay, so Georgia is going to be teaching in our workshop series here very shortly. She has this project that we're partnered with, aligned with, and wanting to just spread the word as far and wide as possible. It would be a tragedy for all of us, astrology students, astrology lovers, to lose access to where these great works are. So if you are inspired to contribute, we're going to put all the links in the show notes so you can just refer right back to that. And Georgia, thank you for doing something that just, obviously inspiration moved you, and you and Christine jumped on it, and now you've created this project that benefits all of us. And I'm happy to be able to spread the word. And I know that this amazing community of astrology lovers is generous in wanting to support things, and they consistently. So thanks to all for that. Yeah. All right. So thank you so much for tuning in here today, and thank you for being a part of our community. Again, check those show notes if you want to contribute and support Georgia and her efforts. And we'll look forward to seeing you in the workshop series. Thanks for being here, everybody. Take care.
Bye.